Rain hits your jacket and rolls off in perfect little beads. You barely notice it. It looks like nothing. But that small performance can begin with one of the toughest bonds in everyday chemistry. And the name scientists gave that chemistry has become one of the most misunderstood phrases in modern science. Forever chemicals. You have heard it. Maybe it made you nervous. Maybe you rolled your eyes and moved on. Before either reaction is fair, the name itself needs explaining. Start with the basics. PFAS, short for per, and polyfluoroalkyl substances is not one chemical. It is a very large family, and the evidence differs between its members. Some PFAS have been studied for decades. Others barely have a research trail yet. Painting them all with the same brush is where most of the confusion begins. Just how large is this family? Researchers working from a widely used definition published by the OECD in 2021 have identified PFAS numbering in the thousands. The exact count matters less than the takeaway. This is not a single molecule hiding in your kitchen. It is a sprawling chemical family tree, and different branches behave in very different ways. So what actually makes a PFAS a PFAS? At the center of the molecule sits a bond between carbon and fluorine. This carbon-fluorine bond is one of the strongest single bonds found in organic chemistry. That strength is not a design flaw. It is the entire reason this chemistry became useful in the first place. A strong bond resists being broken. Heat struggles to break it. Oil struggles to break it. Water struggles to break it. That is exactly the property engineers wanted when they built materials meant to repel stains, resist grease, or shed water under pressure. The same resistance that keeps rain rolling off your jacket can also help a coating survive a hot pan, a chemical splash, or years of friction. Industry did not adopt this chemistry by accident. It solved real engineering problems. Firefighting foam needed to smother fuel fires faster than water alone could manage. Certain industrial processes needed materials that would not degrade under intense heat or corrosive conditions. Some consumer coatings needed to resist grease and moisture at the same time. Fluorinated chemistry offered performance that older materials could not match, and for decades, that performance was treated as a pure engineering win. But here is the twist baked into the design itself. The same bond that resists breaking down under a hot pan also resists breaking down in soil, in water, and inside living systems. Chemists gave certain PFAS a nickname, forever chemicals. It is a striking phrase, and it is rooted in something real. It refers to how slowly many PFAS break down under ordinary environmental conditions. It does not mean every PFAS behaves identically. It does not mean destruction is physically impossible under all engineered conditions. High temperature and advanced treatment processes can break some of these bonds under controlled circumstances. What the name really describes is persistence in nature, not indestructibility everywhere. Understanding that difference is the whole point of this video. So how does this chemistry travel from a factory floor into a glass of water? Picture one documented pathway. A manufacturing or industrial site uses PFAS-containing materials in its processes, or a fire training facility repeatedly applies firefighting foam on a controlled pad. Wastewater or runoff carrying trace amounts moves outward. Conventional treatment plants were not originally built to remove these compounds efficiently. Some PFAS pass through and reach a river or move downward into groundwater. From there, a nearby public water system may draw its supply, treat it as required by law, and deliver it to homes in the surrounding area. Communities near certain industrial sites and firefighting training locations have documented this exact chain. Verified through monitoring data collected by state and federal environmental agencies over years, sometimes decades, of testing. Notice what that pathway does not say. It does not say every water source everywhere carries the same risk. Exposure depends on proximity to a specific documented source, on which compounds were used there, and on how a local water system responds once contamination is identified. Once PFAS reach the body, what actually happens? This is where compound by compound accuracy matters most. Many well-studied PFAS, including PFOA and PFOS, do not settle mainly into body fat the way some pollutants do. According to the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, these compounds bind strongly to proteins in blood and can distribute to organs such as the liver and kidneys. Some leave the body slowly, over a span of years, which is part of why blood testing can detect them long after an exposure event ended. That elimination pattern is specific to certain PFAS. It is not a universal rule for the entire family. and shorter chain PFAS, in particular, tend to move through the body differently than the older, longer chain compounds. If blood testing comes up in conversation, one distinction matters. A test can measure the presence of selective PFAS in someone's blood. It generally cannot identify exactly where that exposure came from, cannot diagnose a disease, cannot determine a treatment plan, and cannot predict an individual's future health with certainty. It is one data point, not a verdict. What does the health evidence actually say? In November 2023, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, part of the World Health Organization, completed a hazard evaluation of two specific compounds. It classified PFOA as carcinogenic to humans, a Group 1 hazard classification based on sufficient evidence in animal studies and strong mechanistic evidence in exposed people. It classified PFOS differently, as possibly carcinogenic to humans, a Group 2B classification based on more limited evidence. Two closely related compounds evaluated by the same expert panel in the same meeting. Two different conclusions. That contrast alone should settle any temptation to say all PFAS cause cancer. The evidence does not support that sentence. A hazard classification is not the same as a personal risk calculation. It answers whether an agent can cause cancer under some circumstances. It does not tell you your own probability of harm from one product, one glass of water, or one exposure event. Risk depends on which compound, how much, by what route, and for how long. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences describe ongoing research into other health outcomes, including effects on cholesterol levels and immune response, generally framed as associations found in observational studies rather than settled causal proof for every named PFAS. Detection is not diagnosis. Presence in a water sample is not a guaranteed health effect. Hazard is not personal risk. Keep those distinctions close. Which brings the story to parts per trillion, the unit often used to describe PFS in water. 1 part per trillion is an extraordinarily small concentration. Detecting something at that scale does not automatically mean it is dangerous, and it does not automatically mean it is safe. What matters is how that number compares to a specific health-based benchmark for that specific compound. As of 2026, the United States Environmental Protection Agency's enforceable drinking water limits for PFOA and PFOS remain set at 4 parts per trillion each, established in a final rule issued in April 2024. That regulatory story, though, is still moving. And this is exactly the kind of detail that needs a date attached to it rather than a permanent label. As of July 2026, the EPA has proposed extending the compliance deadline for those PFOA and PFOS limits from 2029 to 2031, an option available to water systems that formally request more time. In a separate proposal issued the same month, the agency has also proposed rescinding the enforceable limits for 4 other PFAS, including PFHX, PFNA, and HFPO. DA on procedural grounds under the Safe Drinking Water Act. Both proposals remain open for public comment as of this recording, not finalized law. This is exactly why the family framing matters. A change affecting one set of PFAs does not automatically apply to every other member of the family, and a proposal is not the same as a final rule. Here is where the deeper twist lies. Water treatment technologies such as activated carbon, ion exchange, and reverse osmosis can capture many PFAS from drinking water effectively. Independently certified filters can meaningfully reduce specific PFAS when maintained exactly as directed. But capturing is not the same as destroying. Once trapped, these compounds remain concentrated inside a filter or a resin, and that spent material still has to be disposed of or treated somewhere. Removing PFAS from your glass does not erase the chemistry. It relocates it, at least until a documented destruction process, such as certain high-temperature or advanced oxidation technologies, is applied under controlled conditions further down the waste stream. That distinction, capture versus destruction, is quietly one of the biggest unresolved engineering problems in this field. A community can win the fight to get PFAS out of its tap water and still be left asking where all of it eventually goes. One more twist is worth sitting with. As manufacturers phase out some older, longer-chain PFAS, they have often replaced them with newer, shorter-chain alternatives. Some of these newer compounds appear to leave the body faster than their predecessors, but faster elimination from the body is not automatically the same as being easier to manage in the environment. Some shorter-chain PFAS move more readily through water and can be harder for certain treatment systems to capture. A replacement is not automatically safer across every dimension just because it changed in one of them. So where does that leave you? Standing in the rain, watching water bead off a jacket. Not contaminated, not doomed, simply better equipped to ask sharper questions. When a claim says PFAS was detected, the next question is which compound, at what level, compared with what benchmark. When a claim says a rule was passed, the next question is which agency, which jurisdiction, and whether it is final or still proposed. When a label says PFAS-free, the next question is what specific test and definition back that claim. Because that phrase does not have one single universal meaning across every product category. Your local water utility publishes a water quality report you can actually read. Independent certification bodies test filters against specific PFAS claims, not vague promises, individual health concerns, including questions during pregnancy or about a specific product, along with a qualified clinician and current official guidance, not with a viral headline. None of this requires panic, and none of it deserves dismissal. It asks for exactly the kind of attention this molecule's own chemistry demands, precise, compound by compound, evidence by evidence, one date and one jurisdiction at a time. Rain still hits your jacket and rolls off in perfect little beads. Now you know the bond behind it, you know why one nickname could never capture an entire chemical family, and you know the difference between a name that sounds eternal and a story that is still very much being written.